Now that Half-Life Alyx is fully revealed, there's a lot of information coming from many different corners of the internet, from official sources like the Steam store and the new Half-Life Alyx website, and also from some of the mainstream gaming journalists that have had an opportunity to talk with some of the people from the Half-Life Alyx development team. Let's recap everything that we have learned following the reveal of Half-Life Alyx and go into some of the leaks that have been confirmed because of this information. Here we go. First, obviously, we know that this game is shipping March of 2020 and will be VR only. This is without a doubt the most asked question specifically to me: will there be a non-VR version of Half-Life Alyx? Valve has stated many times now that if they tried to make a non-VR experience, the entire game would degrade in quality due to where their focus has been through this development cycle. Now, it has come to light that people who own the Valve Index or will buy an Index by the end of this year will get the whole game for free. There's no need to enter a key or purchase the game. It will appear in your Steam library upon release, ready to play. The website also states that customers who have purchased the Valve Index hardware by the end of 2019 will have access to unique bonuses starting early next year. Explore environments from Half-Life Alyx in your Steam VR home space, alternative gun skins to embellish Alyx's arsenal, and special Half-Life Alyx themed content for Counter-Strike Global Offensive. What's interesting is there were records of this saying Counter-Strike Global Offensive and Dota 2. In the meantime, they have removed all references to new content being added to Dota 2. We are just getting Half-Life Alyx themed content for CSGO. These Source 2 development tools, at least in the VR space, have been confirmed. Found on the Valve website, quote, a set of Source 2 tools for building new levels will be available for the game, enabling any player to build and contribute new environments for the community to enjoy. Hammer, Valve's level authoring tools, have been updated with all of the game's virtual reality gameplay, tools, and components. It's also safe to assume that Half-Life Alyx will see workshop integration, allowing for the publication and distribution of community-made maps, map packs, and possibly even mods built right into Steam, allowing players to download them and play them without having to leave their headset. What we don't know is if they're releasing just the virtual reality development tools or a full codebase SDK. If they just release the VR tools, then map packs and basic mods are totally possible, but you won't be able to see anything akin to an old-school modding revolution for virtual reality without the introduction of the codebase. So, if you want to be able to see the full SDK released, not necessarily alongside the release of HLA, but soon after, please make it known, because Valve pays attention to what the community says. And if the community states they want the SDK, then they might just do it. It's also known that this is the, quote, largest game team yet. Quote, Half-Life Alyx is the largest game team we've ever had. About a third of the people on this project have worked on previous Half-Life games, some all the way back to the first Half-Life. The Campo Santo hires played an important part in bringing fresh perspectives, which has always been a crucial part of our process. That quote was from Greg Coomer. The Campo Santo hires have been working on Half-Life Alyx. This likely confirms that In the Valley of Gods is on hold for the current time. I made a post on Twitter related to how all the major Campo Santo hires delisted In the Valley of Gods on their Twitter bios, and that went everywhere. And now that we have a higher-up Valve employee confirming Campo Santo is working on this game, the future of In the Valley of Gods is questionable. There'll be a future report on that. Surprisingly, we've learned that Mark Laidlaw is not completely out of this game's development. Quote, as with all Valve games, the writing is a collaboration between the writers and all the animators, actors, and the level designers who implement the narrative within the game itself. While Mark hasn't worked on Half-Life Alyx directly, he's been generous with his time answering all the writers' questions throughout the game's development. That quote once again from Greg Coomer. Mark Laidlaw left Valve in the summer of 2015 following a disagreement with the developers of the then in development Half-Life 3. The fallout was kind of terrible, and it's still one of the most difficult stories to hear nowadays for me. That said, it's very nice to hear that Mark Laidlaw is helping out the current writers of this game, being Eric Wolpaw and Jake Pinkerton. In case you don't remember, Mark Laidlaw was essentially training Eric Wolpaw and Chet Falisak to take the reins of the Half-Life series during the creation of the episodic games. But then nothing happened for 13 years, and now we're here. This game has actually been in development for 4.5 years. According to Tom Francis, the creator of the game Gunpoint, quote, I've been a playtester on this at various points, but I can't say anything more except for A, that's a nice trailer, and B, I would like a medal for keeping it secret for 4.5 years. And now Now, for the most difficult news of this entire event, Alyx Vance was recast. Merle Dandridge has provided her voice for Alyx Vance since 2004, and according to Greg Coomer, casting choices are incredibly hard, especially considering the time gap. But when we heard the new actor's performance, we knew we found the right Alyx. Now that leads everyone to believe that the situation here was Alyx needed to sound younger, so we had to hire a different voice. Because Merle Dandridge doesn't sound young? The new actress doesn't sound young either. I've seen this trailer about 100 times now, and I am positive there are 2 voice actors for Alyx in this trailer. Listen to this.
So what's the plan?
And now listen to this.
I'm gonna head inside.
That first voice that says, "So what's the plan?"
So what's the plan?
There's no doubt in my mind that's Merle. Whereas this voice,
I'm gonna head inside, find a way out.
doesn't sound anything like Alyx Vance. These are 2 different voices. Not only that, but according to some of my sources who have access to the game build currently, it's Merle's voice in the game. Most of the files are Merle's voice. So I have no idea what's going on here. Something is fishy. And keep in mind, this is Valve. If you're unhappy that they unceremoniously recast and took the part away from Merle, a person who has proven to know more about the character's motivations, likes and dislikes, and general personality, probably more so than anybody but Mark Laidlaw, say something. On Twitter, in the comment section, on Reddit, let Valve know. Merle should have this part. And if she's in the files already, then she at one point had this part. So can't they just flip the switch back? More understandably, and a huge surprise, Eli is in the game. Quote, "One of the real regrets we have about so much time passing between the games is we lost the old actor for Eli Vance. Eli's new voice, J. Moses Black, has big shoes to fill, but we're all excited about his performance and we can't wait for players to hear it." Once again, from Greg Coomer. Now with that said, we do know that everybody else is returning. Mike Shapiro is confirmed to be the voice of G-Man. Ellen McLean is confirmed to be the voice of the Overwatch. So once again, why not Merle? And it's been said by a couple of people that this game marks Valve's public return to the Half-Life franchise. That may be a lie, by the way, but this is what they've stated. Quote, "It's probably no surprise that many people of Valve have been wanting to get back to the Half-Life universe for a long time, and this experience has only reinforced that. In the process of creating Half-Life Alyx, we've had to explore new ways to tell stories with these characters and this world, and we've discovered a lot of new gameplay experiences that go beyond what we've been able to do before. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how people react to Half-Life Alyx once it's out, but we'd love to continue pushing forward. I talked about this in the last Half-Life Alyx video. They are pushing the idea that if Half-Life Alyx isn't received well, we'd likely not see anything further. That, in my opinion, seems unprofessional and a little uncomfortable. With that said, everybody's freaking out about Half-Life Alyx. The reception thus far has been immensely great. But that also pushes forward the idea that the future of the Half-Life series may only have its life on virtual reality. That said, you have to remember a psychologist published up all dialogue related to the game's announcement to make sure that people understand that if people don't like Half-Life Alyx, we might not get Half-Life 3. The game is known to be around 15 hours long. From Robin Walker, quote, "This isn't a spin-off or a side story or anything of the sort. It's a full-scale campaign. Repeated playtest results indicate it's about the same length of Half-Life 2. Jeff Keighley on Twitter stated, quote, "I've played through Half-Life Alyx. It took me over 15 hours and seen it in multiple stages of development. This is a full-blown Half-Life experience with a rich, vibrant world, immersive combat, great storytelling, and innovative game design." Now, as I reported a few months ago, this game started as a demo that was cut from the lab named Codename Shooter. Quote, "Our Half-Life experiments begin all the way back in the lab for the Vive, yielding exciting results very quickly. As soon as we had a small section of Half-Life gameplay up and running in VR with Half-Life 2 assets and added some rudimentary hand physics and interactions, it was very clear that Half-Life suited virtual reality. We thought we had something playtesters would finish in 15 minutes, and instead, players spent 45 minutes exploring it and didn't want to stop." End quote from Robin Walker. I've already made a full report on exactly what this prototype was, as it leaked within the hands-on lab demo. The video to that should be up in the corner with a card and also down in the description below. The game is also confirmed to have 3 locomotion options: teleportation, shift movement, and continuous smooth locomotion. This is exciting. For the longest time, time through development, this game was teleport only. And according to some of my sources, it's still pretty much teleportation only in the current day. The smooth locomotion option doesn't really work just yet, but they have publicly announced it, so they are putting themselves to the task to create it. Because we know that even now the smooth locomotion option is really an afterthought, you have to remember that all of the levels were designed for teleportation in mind first and foremost. So the smooth locomotion option will not be the way the game designers intended you to play. Exactly how that affects the gameplay has yet to be seen. Even though it's been confirmed that Half-Life Alyx can be played on any virtual reality headset that is compatible with Steam VR and has tracked motion controllers, the Index is still quote-unquote the best way to play. Quote, we've really tried to make the best use of Index controllers for those who have them, while also ensuring that those who don't still have a great experience with Half-Life Alyx. There is a small set of things that the Index controllers can do that other controllers can't do at all, and they're fun but not required. Like being able to crush a can that you're holding in your hand. But there's a larger set of things that work on any track controllers, yet end up being better on the Index controllers because we were developing them in conjunction with the game. The most obvious example is the core interactions players have with objects in Half-Life Alyx. Picking up, holding, dropping, throwing, and manipulating. Players perform these basic actions many times throughout the game, and over our years of playtesting, we found that combining the player trigger usage with the tracked finger locations was the most successful method of supporting their intentions. So while you can perform most actions with just a trigger or button, we just think it feels more natural with the way the Index controllers operate. Finally, the ability for a player to relax their hands without dropping the controllers turned out to be a significant factor in our Half-Life Alyx playtests. As our Index controller prototypes started replacing our older controllers in playtests, we started seeing players be able to play for longer and longer stretches of time because they weren't required to hold onto real-world objects the entire time. This really wasn't something we saw as a problem in our early days of VR development, but now that VR games have become longer and more fully featured, we think this is becoming far more important." End quote. Now, as I reported many years ago, the gravity gloves is the main gameplay hook of this game. Like the gravity gun, this allows you to force grab objects directly from your hand somewhere in the world. Now that said, even though internally in the code it's been called the gravity gloves, officially they're called the gravity gloves. That sucks. The gravity gloves is a far better name than the gravity gloves. It's like having to call this Half-Life Alyx instead of HLVR. I called it HLVR for years, and it's still hard to reroute my brain. And of everything that was said officially by Valve, the following is the most questionable. This is a prequel to Half-Life 2. Yet, Valve recommends that you have played Half-Life 2 Episode 2 before diving in. Quote, "It's not a side story, nor an episodic one. It's the next part of the Half-Life story, in a game around the same length as Half-Life 2. While it does take place before the events of Half-Life 2, we actually recommend that you play through Half-Life 2 Episode 2 before you play Half-Life Alyx for reasons that will become clear as you progress. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how people react to Half-Life Alyx once it's out, but we'd love to continue pushing forward." I need to apologize to Polygon. Polygon wrote an article about how Half-Life Alyx may not be strictly a prequel, and I said, don't do this, it's strictly a prequel. Now, there's evidence to suggest that there's time travel involved in this game, and I'm not going to go any further on that. There seems to be some real weird stuff going on with the lore, and thank God Eric Wolpaw returned. According to the Steam page for Half-Life Alyx, quote, "Half-Life Alyx is Valve's VR return to the Half-Life series. It's the story of an impossible fight against a vicious alien race known as the Combine. Set between the events of Half-Life and Half-Life 2, playing as Alyx Vance, you are humanity's only chance for survival. The Combine's control of the planet since the Black Mesa incident has only strengthened as they corral the remaining populations in cities. Among them are some of Earth's greatest scientists. You and your father, Dr. Eli Vance. As founders of the fledgling resistance, you've continued to clandestine scientific activity, performing critical research and building invaluable tools for the few humans brave enough to defy the Combine. Every day, you learn more about your enemy, and every day, you work towards finding a weakness. As stated on the official Half-Life Alyx website, quote, "Set between the events of Half-Life and Half-Life 2, Alyx Vance and her father, Eli, mount an early resistance to the Combine's brutal occupation of Earth. The loss of the 7 hours Hours war is still fresh. In the shadow of a rising Combine fortress known as the Citadel, residents of City 17 learn to live under the rule of their invaders. But among this scattered population are two of Earth's most resourceful scientists, Dr. Eli Vance and his daughter, the founders of the fledgling resistance. You and your father were relocated to City 17. There's a lot to break down related to the trailer and the story. For example, this character is named Russell, even though he seems to be heavily based on the cut character Odell. And did you know Russell originally had a Russian accent? Also, we have no evidence of Dr. Isaac Kleiner or Barney Calhoun making an appearance in this game. All of the information related to story speculation, story information, and trailer breakdown details specifically will have to wait until my next Half-Life Alyx report, as this one's already getting a little long. If you want to be able to follow up on all of the topics I cover on this channel in real time, check out my Twitter page linked down in the description below. It's at Valve News Network, no K. If you have a question about anything in this video, or if you're confused about anything, my DMs on that Twitter are always open, and my email is tylernewsnetwork@gmail.com. If you want to be able to support these videos, I have a Patreon page linked down in the description below, where you get to watch videos early and get your name in the credits, and thank you very much for watching. I'm Tyler McVicker, this is Valve News Network. Have a good day. Adios.